Good morning and welcome to our Jesse Tree Devotions for December 17th. Again, we are reading from Unwrapping the Greatest Gift, a Family Celebration of Christmas by Anne Voskamp. Today our ornament is the city of Bethlehem. And the title is A True Fairy Tale. A reading from Micah, chapter 5, verses 2 to 5. You, O Bethlehem, are only a small village among all the people of Judah. Yet a ruler of Israel will come from you, one whose origins are from the distant past. The people of Israel will be abandoned to the enemies until the woman in labor gives birth. Then at last his fellow countrymen will return from exile to their own land, and he will stand to lead his flock with the Lord's strength, in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God. Then his people will live there undisturbed, for he will be highly honored around the world, and he will be the source of peace. And our devotion. Have you ever gotten lost in the pages of fairy tales with their castles and kings? Well, once upon a time, which was actually before time began, a story began that is better than the most otherworldly fairy tale you've ever heard. God gathered God's children and told them what would happen even before it happened. The Father King of heaven and of all the universe and God's Son King looked across their kingdom and saw how all their children they made were being held captive by the dark and sinful and sickness and badness. They knew their unconditional, unstoppable, unwrappable love had to come to get their people, us. So they came up with the very best rescue plan. And this is what they decided. The Father King would open the backside of the world, and the Son King would unexpectedly slip right into the kingdom through a little unlikely door. Bethlehem. Remember Ruth, whose husband died, and she followed Naomi back to nobody would be expecting little Bethlehem, whose name means house of bread. Many years later, Ruth's very own great-grandson, a puny little shepherd boy named David, spent many nights lying on the hills of Bethlehem, just staring up at the sea of blinking stars, his heart beating with God's heart. And then, long after King David, if you stacked one year upon another until you had a teetering tower of 1,000 long years, the Son King, Jesus, slipped into the kingdom. He was born as a baby about as small as a loaf of bread, right there in a barn in nobody would be expecting little Bethlehem. The moment the Son King inhaled earth into his lungs, the binding light of history slashed back the smothering dark. The Son King brought joy from beyond the walls of the world. And shepherds lying out on those same Bethlehem hills saw the sky bursting with a blinding star over little Bethlehem, because who would be expecting all that? The Sun King did not grow up in a palace, or even have a pillow to lay his head on. The Sun King had no throne and no horse. He was a carpenter with a hammer. He wandered the countryside fixing broken down bodies and broken up hearts and breaking little loaves of bread to feed huge crowds of hungry people. Because who would be expecting that? And then the Sun King let the very children God made and loved slap him and whip him and nail him, always loving hands, to a cross. And all evil and badness across the universe laughed as if they'd won. Then they wrapped the limp Sun King dead body in rags and forgot him in a grave. Whoever expected the tears of all this? But then, when no one was expecting anything from another world at all, the Sun King jolted right up out of the grave, alive, and the light forever shattered the darkness. The king flung off the rotty grave clothes and rose, God's perfect heart beating, hope loud in his chest. Monster stones rolled, because who would be expecting that? And the Sun King walked right out of the grave, his heel crushing the snake-like head of all the evil and badness, and all the king's children in the whole universe were wooed and wowed back to life again. It's coming. The kingdom's coming in little and small and unexpected ways. And the king is coming to rule and make all the sad things untrue and make all the bad things come undone. When we love in little ways, the big things unexpectedly begin to happen. They won't be expecting that. In little places, through unexpected people, the story is unfolding and unwrapping all around you and in you. The light overtaking the darkness. And it's like you can see the new kingdom bursting in right now. How all the lit up trees and all the trees of the field will clap their hands. This story that is happening is better than the greatest fairy tale ever told, because it's true. And so we hang our Bethlehem on our Jesse tree. Thoughts to discuss. Why do you think Jesus was born in such a small and insignificant town? How does it make you feel to know that God can do amazing things in little places with unexpected people? And an activity. Think of one little thing you can do to make someone feel special. Thank you for joining us, and we'll hope to see you back tomorrow for our devotion on the 18th of December.